I'm going to start this video by correcting a couple mistakes that I've made, which has just caused me and probably other people some confusion, but we'll clear that up now. So one thing I noticed is that the driver slash output coil is always going through this capacitor to ground. And the diode here simply forces battery ground to either go through the diode as in regular mode, or it's just connected directly to ground in the harmonic mode. So my old schematic looked like this, which is not correct. Actually, what happens is this this line here, that doesn't go there. It's actually this capacitor needs to move down here, get connected to ground, and this line goes away, and then that's how it actually is. So it actually looks like this. So that's mistake number one that I made. Mistake number two was that in my LM386 schematic that I've been using, I could not get the output to not be some kind of mangled mess that was not anywhere close to half the supply voltage. And what I discovered was that I had accidentally connected these two wires together. And of course, in hindsight, I could see why that totally screwed up all of my simulations, but I didn't notice it until just recently that I had made that mistake. So I'm a little embarrassed that my previous simulations are kind of messed up, but you know, we can move forward from this point here. So what I have here is I'm modeling the regular mode on the left side, the harmonic mode on the right side. And I kind of have a hybrid of the simulation I showed in the previous video of the response time of the string before the Ebow circuit takes it and runs with it, basically. And so on this side, this would be your guitar string going from a resting state to an oscillation of a certain magnitude. And as it moves along, it kind of becomes a larger signal as it goes through the input coil. And then at the input, we have somewhere around like 6.65 volts peak to peak. And finally now we see something that looks like real world, and that would be we kind of have this clip sine wave at the output that's roughly half the supply voltage. Because as I mentioned before, the LM386 automatically biases to half the supply voltage. So that makes sense what we see here. Okay, we go through the output capacitor. We have something that looks like that. And then at the output of the driver coil, we have something that looks like this. So you can see there's a little bit of a phase shift right here. And by the way, I have this running at twice the fundamental, which would be the second harmonic, which I demonstrated in the earlier videos is what it's doing in the regular mode. So this makes sense. And if we go over here to the harmonic side, we have this is now running at 741 hertz, 3 times the fundamental, the third harmonic. And same thing, we have string going from a resting state and growing into a larger, signal of more magnitude. Then we come into the input of the LM386 and we're, around 0.65 5 volts or so. Once again, we come out of the LM386. That looks as you'd expect, roughly half the supply voltage. And then we go through the, okay, I messed that up. We go through the output coil and we have this. So we have phase shifting going on again. And if we zoom in on this a little bit, you can see there's a little bit of a third harmonic trying to start here, which is what I saw in the real world. So it appears that this is what the circuit's doing. It's phase shifting the signal that's coming out of the driver coil and then feeding that back into the pickup. And then you have the fundamental along with the phase shifted second or third harmonic. So that appears to be what it's doing electronically. So kind of the one unanswered question I still have is what is the purpose of the diode on, on the regular mode? I can only surmise that maybe it somehow helps to, for the circuit to accent one harmonic versus the other. Like maybe it needs to run at a little bit lower voltage, coupled with the fact that the oscillator is running a little bit slower. And that will accent the second harmonic versus the third harmonic when we're going straight to ground, higher power supply by 0.7 volts, and the oscillator is now running a little higher. In normal mode, it appears the operating frequency would be 2.4 kilohertz, and then harmonic mode is 2.6. So it must be some combination of factors like that that causes the harmonic mode to run at the third harmonic and the regular mode to run on the second harmonic. So this does not do what the patent says. The patent says that they're reversing the current in the coil. And I don't really see this as reducing the current in the coil. I mean, maybe that's what their original prototype did, is they actually literally reversed the coil or something, but they found another way to do it that has the same end result. But this is how I interpret it. I don't see how this could be reversing the current. If you understand how that works with this circuit, then please let me know. So one last thing I wanted to show in these LTSpice simulations here is the response time from when the string starts to vibrate to when the Ebow picks it up and runs with it. So I currently have all of the values that my resurrected Ebow is using as far as input coil, output coil / driver coil, feedback resistor, and the feedback capacitor. And so I'm going to go ahead and run it now. And so I'm just going to show you. Okay, so I have this running at the string's 247 hertz, open B string, which is what I've been using in all these simulations. And so we're going to come from this tiny signal. It's going to grow into something much larger. And I don't know if it's going to actually be almost 2 volts peak to peak, but this is what we see here, right? So somewhere around 70 milliseconds, the string starts to actually vibrate. And if we look at the input of the LM386, that's tracking right along with it. And if we zoom in on this, we can see at about 100 milliseconds, it goes from oscillating at 2.4 kilohertz to the same frequency as the guitar string. And that seems to correspond with how quick it seemed to respond when I had the resurrected Ebow working at its best. Right before I tried to put it back into the plastic housing, and then it didn't want to work nearly as well.